This session will be moderated by Mr. Masanori Kobayashi of Sasakawa Peace Foundation. Over to you.
Hello
everyone, I'm Kobayashi of Sasakawa Peace Foundation. We just had the private sector representatives discuss the ocean on a very passionate heart. Blue economy, protecting the ocean, and using marine resources in a sustainable manner for economic benefits. Now, in this session, I would like to discuss this from an Asian perspective, as well as from a Pacific perspective, to talk about regional collaboration. We have two speakers, one from Bangkok, another from Fiji. We will introduce them in due time, but before that, I would like to show the video from United Nations Secretary General Special Envoy for the Ocean, Peter Thomson.
Video message from Ambassador Peter Thomson, UN Secretary General's Special Envoy for Ocean. Please join us in listening to his video message.
Excellencies, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, all courtesies observed, and warm greetings and many thanks for giving me the honor of addressing you all. It is fitting that the Global Nature Positive Summit is being held in the beautiful setting of Kumamoto. Exemplifying what is true for Japan as a whole, Kumamoto is praised for its relationship with nature and the closest appreciation its people have for the year's passing seasons. You're meeting in Kyushu Island during summer, and it's probably very warm and perhaps wet. So I remind you of Sei Shonagon's famous lines, written over 1,000 years ago. In spring, it is the dawn that is most beautiful. As the light creeps over the hills, their outlines are dyed a faint red, and wisps of purplish cloud trail over them. In summer, the nights, not only when the moon shines, but on dark nights too, as the fireflies flit to and fro, and even when it rains, how beautiful it is. Ladies and gentlemen, some of you may have heard my daily mantra, no healthy planet without a healthy ocean, and the ocean's health is currently measurably in decline. I wish to emphasize that the mantra is not a message of despair. It's actually a message that leads to hope and positive action. For its corollary is that we are called upon to stop and reverse the decline. At its heart is a demand to curtail what are essentially human failings. What humankind has done, it can undo. And in all aspects of the decline's reversal, with a communality of purpose and will, it is well within our powers to do so. In conformity with the UN's Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework's agreement to halt and reverse nature loss with continued recovery, it is critical that we accelerate positive action as we move closer to 2030. Thus, the call to action is for humankind to bring an end to the anthropogenic maladies it is putting upon nature, and to diligently apply the nature-positive restoration measures required. So it is that the blue-green transition to renewable energy and circular economies, powered by the overwhelming logic of both science and economics, must now proceed at a greatly hastened pace. Within this transition, the growing opportunities of the sustainable blue economy come strongly to the fore. But such is the state of the natural world that it's also become imperative for us to understand across all types of capital that financial returns alone are not sufficient end goals for investors for the well-being of their countries, for their communities, and of course their families. It's now widely recognized that the value of nature belongs on the balance sheets of every corporation and country, and that not to account for nature is a sure path to tragic consequence in the long run. And I'm sure that this conviction is going to receive a significant springboard from the Global Nature Positive Summit. May I also emphasize that embedding the nature positive ethos into the world's mindset must always include the ocean. For after all is said and done, this is the universe's blue planet, the planet with an ocean that covers over 70% of its surface, within which up to 80% of all planetary life exists. Logic and harmony with nature demand we must be nature positive in the ocean. I wish you every success at this summit.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Peter Thomson, for his very robust and encouraging message, and that was very comprehensive, covering many issues. I now like to introduce first Dr. Rakeshni Lata, the Training and Capacity Building Officer for Nature-Based Solutions of the Pacific Communities. I come from the Sasakawa Peace Foundation in Tokyo, Japan. And last month, we collaborated with the Nippon Foundation and others in organizing Island State Ocean Summit. And at the summit, we also observed, we sometimes put together all the Pacific Island countries in one category, but actually they differ from some aspects to the others. Fishing patterns is different. The level of marine protected areas is also different. Distance and topography, there are quite a number of differences. And this Pacific Community Secretariat, SPC, it's been trying to coordinate the policies for the 14 island member countries and its associated members. And I see that there are lots of challenges, particularly as to how you can really find a common interest of island countries in promoting ocean conservation and sustainable blue economies that can also contribute to the ocean positive actions. So now I'd like to invite Rakeshni to tell us the latest of the Pacific Island in relation with this nature positive ocean conservations and the blue economies. What is really the achievement, what is the challenge, and what you expect for the coming months and years? Rakeshni, please.
Thank you, Masanori, and a warm Pacific greeting from the Blue Pacific. I'm proud to bring the voice of Blue Pacific to Kumamoto. As a specialist in nature-based solution at the Pacific community, one lesson I have learned is that global commitment only move at the speed of local capacity. We can agree ambitious targets, whether under its 30 by 30, the BBNJ treaty, or future climate agreements, but implementation depends on people, institutions, partnership, and communities on the ground. For the Pacific Island countries, the ocean is not simply an environmental asset. It is our food security, our climate resilience, our livelihood, our culture, and also our future. The Blue Pacific comprises 42 million square kilometers, 20% of world's exclusive economic zones, 30% of world's coral reef, and around 50% of global tuna catch. Yet Pacific communities remain the most vulnerable to climate change impacts. As we move towards COP17, the CBD COP, COP31, and also nature positive pathway, the Pacific is not simply calling for greater ambition, but we are demonstrating practical pathways forward. Through the initiative like Unlocking Blue Pacific Prosperity, which is the UBPP, we usually call that, Pacific countries are working together to advance sustainable ocean management, resilient food system, and fit-for-purpose funding. that can translate global commitments into local action and long-term prosperity. We invite the government of Japan, our partners, private sectors, leaders, to co-invest in such initiatives in the Pacific-led pipelines, so seeds drive global environmental agendas. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rakeshni. We really see this Unlocking Blue Pacific Prosperity Initiative. This is one of the main policy goal of the Pacific Island countries to try to promote sustainable blue economies. And the question is how the countries can really balance these conservations and the sustainable use, and how they can also mobilize investment in the activities that they are proposing for fisheries, marine conservations, aquacultures, blue tourisms, and marine transportations. And the question is how we can really link it with nature positive concept. So this is really the question we have to address. I think same can apply to Southeast Asia, and Mahesh Pradhan, he's coordinator of the coordinating body on the Sea of East Asia called COBSEA. He's based in Bangkok and spearheading this regional program. Can I ask Mahesh to tell us what is the progress, challenges, and the future perspectives, particularly for blue or ocean positive action in Southeast Asia?
Thank you so much, Masanori, and also for inviting me to this Global Nature Positive Summit. It's wonderful to be back in Japan. Minasama konnichiwa. I used to work here,
Everyone.
But I've never been to this beautiful Kumamoto, so it's really a pleasure. I just wanted to start, and maybe following up on South Pacific, to highlight from the East Asian seas, and this is where regional collaboration is really important amongst the countries. I think the panel just before on ocean positive action was really interesting, of engaging with private sector, but amongst the countries themselves, and this is where transboundary issues come into play, is that we have a very unique partnership model that's been around for over 50 years. It's called the Regional Seas Program, started in 1974, 2 years after the first UN conference on the human environment in Stockholm, which was in 72. So since 74, countries have been working on 70%, as we heard Ambassador Peter Thomson say, the ocean space. And to address these challenges over the many years, we have 18 regional seas programs all over the world. COBSEA is one of these 18. And out of the 18, 7 are administered by the United Nations Environment Program, UNEP. So with COBSEA, we have 9 countries, mainly ASEAN countries. We're based in Bangkok, in Thailand, the Secretariat. But we also have China and the Republic of Korea. So within that, the 9 countries have been actively collaborating, and here the opportunities as well as challenges focus around 3 pillars. First is marine pollution. And you know, often most of the pollution ends up in our beautiful oceans. Land-based sources of marine pollution. Plastics is an example, and there is an effort for a global plastics treaty, and it's just being restarted again just last month, and hopefully early next year we will see a bit more progress. But not just plastics, which is visible, nutrients, which is also running off into the oceans, over fertilizer use, so on and so forth, harmful algal blooms, huge challenges as well. The second bit, which is more related to the marine ecosystems, and here we've heard a lot about the GBF, the Global Biodiversity Framework, the blue economy, marine protected areas. We have this huge challenge of protecting 30% by 2030. And countries are barely 10%, 12%, or even less. How can we reach those challenges? Yeah, so that is something that we are working on. Next week in Bangkok, we have a very interesting training on marine spatial planning. And this is, again, capacity building. How do we plan better? We've heard about wind, we've heard about energy, we've heard about maritime transport. How do we do better in terms of planning, so on and so forth? And the final bit I wanted to highlight is on the ocean climate linkage. And here, blue carbon, coastal resilience, we all are seeing more of these typhoons getting stronger, more flooding, affecting our communities. So I think there's a lot that needs still to be done, but the countries collaborating with each other, sharing those examples, help to move the needle. Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Mahesh, for updating us on the situation in Southeast Asia. Every time I attend a meeting on, for instance, on marine plastic pollution control, I argue that Southeast Asia should not be a source of problems, but should be the source of solutions. And for that, maybe I just tell that when I was in one of the Southeast Asian countries, I see beautiful beach completely covered by plastic waste. And I have asked the local people what to do with these plastics. And they say that it will disappear in 2 weeks. So they have no incentives to collect it. And then I asked, so you don't have to collect it? And they said that, but the plastic waste will come back in 2 months. So plastic waste just floating around, and the local people don't have any incentives to collect and dispose it for actually resolving this floating plastic waste. And the question is how we can really create the kind of incentives to bring back the plastic polluted beaches into the originally natural beaches. I think this can be one of the nature positive actions that we should pursue it. And I think, we should create a good practice and some explanatory actions, the kind of models that we can really replicate as a good practice for other countries. Maybe same can be said for the Pacific Island countries. They import a lot of things, but plastic containers, they're just piled up in the backyard of the factories or shops. How can we really bring about the solutions to the Pacific Island countries? For this, we always argue that we have to balance the trade-offs and create the synergies. I think Rakeshni mentioned that fisheries sometimes contradict with ocean conservation. So how can we really balance this sustainable use of marine resources and the conservations? So can you tell us, Rakeshni, how you can really overcome or optimize the solution, trade-offs and try to promote synergies that can help achieving maybe ocean positive actions in the Pacific?
Thank you. So if you look at synergies, the Pacific Coastal Fisheries and Aquaculture Climate Change Strategy for 2026 to 2036 was adopted in the 7th Regional Fisheries Meeting. So under this, it was seen that the monitoring of the ocean was the key, and also that Pacific people are fed, and also protecting the blue economy. So when we look at the Pacific countries, and we look at conservation, we mostly focus on nature-based solutions. So when we look at nature-based solution, we ensure that all the 3 elements are captured. That means the environment is protected. At the same time, the people benefit socially, and also there is economic benefits. And the focus on marine protected area when it comes to oceans is the focus on locally managed marine area. So we look at not a top-down approach, but a bottom-up approach where from the beginning, the indigenous people and their traditional knowledge is included when we are setting up. So that when we are looking at this big target 30 by 30, of course, they need to continue to rely on their livelihood, which is fisheries. So this trade-off is that they manage the area and also they benefit from it. And it's mostly also we look at community-based fisheries management. So what we are moving at is looking and including communities, so that that is how we are trying to balance what we are trying to, we can't just lock it away looking at this target, but we have to look at avenues like I mentioned, NBS, and we look at LMMI and community-based fisheries for this one.
Okay, thank you, Rakeshni. I really agree with you that this benefit of nature positive or ocean positive actions have to be shared by the local stakeholders. It has to really come to the bottom up. And yeah, we really have to enhance the social capacity to see how the communities can organize themselves to promote the collective actions and share benefit from these nature restorations, coastal and marine ecosystem restorations. Thank you for that. And I also turn to Mahesh. Same can be said in Southeast Asia. And Southeast Asia, this economic development also differs from country to country. How can you try to actually create a kind of convergent policy objectives among ASEAN member countries and partner countries? Can you tell us a bit more about how you try to engage these ASEAN member countries in optimizing trade-off and promoting synergies in the context of nature positive or ocean positive actions?
Yeah, thank you, Masa. I just would like to go back to the plastics a little bit in terms of you mentioned about the beaches and then getting, again, dirty after 2 months. Is that with the plastics, and here the negotiations are looking at the whole life cycle of plastics, yeah? Because often with marine litter, we see it only at the end. But in terms of reducing plastics, the consumption, production, I think that whole value chain is where the discussions are, and we'll see where it lands. But with us at COBSEA, we've been running something called the Sea of Solutions, the Southeast Asian Solutions on Plastics. So this year will be the 7th such conference, where we bring together private sector also into the space to discuss what are the solutions. So, and I think that is something that we need to also engage more, yes? I just wanted to share that information. But coming back to your question about conserving and use, how do we have that synergy? And I'd like to share an example which has been catalyzed by our colleagues at CBD, the Convention on Biodiversity. It's wonderful, Astrid is here. That we have something called the Sustainable Ocean Initiative that brings together the regional seas and the regional fisheries organizations, the RFMOs. So here to have that cross dialogue between the conservation folks and the fisheries, I think that's something that really makes a lot of difference. And for us, we just had the 5th Global Dialogue in Seoul. I think that is also where now we have BBNJ, high seas MPAs, fisheries. How can we translate that and connect global with local? I think these are also some very important factors. We heard about LMMAs, but also OECMs. other effective area-based conservation measures. So a lot of this is still needs to be translated into policy, and this is where I think with COBSEA and engaging with the ASEAN Secretariat, we're trying to make some changes.
Excellent, thank you. So we also do research work, and we find it that we still depend on sector-specific regional organizations, and how we can really promote this interagency coordination and collaborations. Same can be said for the Pacific Island. And the Pacific Island, government of Palau is hosting 55 Pacific Island leaders meetings this summer, and that is really the opportunity for the heads of governments and the head of regional organizations from different fields to discuss about the common interest, including nature positive or ocean positive actions. So maybe the final message from Rakeshni to the audience, what you expect and what actions you call for in the context of nature positive actions.
For this one, I think I'll just have a message for Japan. So Japan has a long history of partnership with the Pacific and a very strong commitment to ocean stewardship. And as we move towards this COP17 and the CBD COP31, the pre-COP that is happening, so we see that this Pacific have solutions. Pacific lead solutions that connect ocean conservation, climate resilience, food security, and sustainable economics. The Pacific does not only need investments in projects. Like apart from funds, we need investment in people, because after individual projects end, local capacity actually remains. Partnership that strengthens Pacific capacity in ocean science, data systems, marine management, sustainable blue economy, and nature-based solution can create benefits for the generations. And apart from that, I would just like to briefly look at SPC's Ocean Flagship. So under the UBB Ocean Flagship, we have SPC's Ocean Flagship. So this was in partnership with SPC and OPEC. And currently we have secured USD 20 million. And the Ocean Flagship is the Pacific-led regional program under the UBB, and that aims to turn ocean commitments into action by strengthening ocean government, mobilizing finance, and supporting blue food system and building capacity need for ocean stewardship. So we are getting there, but we need partnership from countries like Japan and the donors that are here, so that we can move with the plan or blueprint that we have from the seeds. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Rakeshni. So Mahesh, very quick and short.
Yes, yeah, I think political will is key to move anything, yeah? So, and just as we speak, we have the high-level political forum taking place in New York this week. In 2 years, we will have the 4th UN Ocean Conference in Korea, co-hosted with Chile. Last year, France hosted UNOC 3, huge event. And I think the focus is back on oceans. And ocean positive, I think, is something that we should all aspire to. Just last month, 8th of June, is World Ocean Day. And I think we should not just have one day in a year saying Ocean Day. Every day should be Ocean Day. And not only Ocean Day, but Ocean Positive Day. And if I look at Ambassador Peter Thomson's cap in his video, Ocean Positive, I think that was wonderful. So with that, I'd just like to say we need to make every day Ocean Positive. Thank you.
Thank you. Last year, we collaborated with Nikkei BP in organizing a Blue Ocean initiatives where we engage the private sectors to come up with policy proposals. I hope that for the next UNOC 4, we can more greatly involve the private sectors both in Japan and overseas. Can you join us in giving a big round of applause to our panelists and Ambassador Peter Thomson. Thank you very much.
ありがとうございました。皆様、今一
Thank you very much. Please give another round of applause to the speakers. Thank you so much.